Hi, this is Sarah Mikesell with the Poultry site, and today we're here with Dr. Joshua Deines. He is the Technical Service Device Lead at Zoetis. Thanks for being with us today, Josh.
Hey, well, thanks for having me.
Very good. And today, Josh and I are at a very chilly Atlanta, Georgia, at IPPE 2026, and we're kind of tucked away here in the Zoetis booth, and we're going to dive right into our questions. We're going to talk about a new study looking at microbial loads at hatcheries to identify areas that were often contaminated. Why is environmental and microbial surveillance such a critical component of hatchery sanitation?
Yeah, well, it's really two things. So one is we want to see what challenge we currently have in our facility. So what is around it and what inputs are coming. If we think of all of our bacterial and fungal load, they're coming from one of four things, either eggs, water, people, or air. And so we're trying to sample all those and see how they're getting the facility and what we're dealing with so that we could create a sanitation program. Then once we have a sanitation program, those surveys are all about confirming if it works and what needs improved, and then ultimately trying to move the needle and improve chick health.
Excellent. This study evaluated microbial loads across many hatchery areas, from egg rooms to in ovo vaccination rooms. What was the goal of surveying such a broad range of locations, Josh?
Well, every piece of the hatchery has an impact, but they're all going to be impactful in different ways. So we try to break it down into segments of the hatchery, and we've been doing this survey for many years, and then this study was collecting a portion of those from last year to do a comparison and say, hey, where are the problems really existing? So if we look at different areas, one, we could focus better on an action plan for how to clean those up, but then two, we could focus on areas that are most likely to cause a problem with chick health. So for example, the setters or the laboratory for vaccine mixing are hot areas, and this study confirmed that they often are overburdened and are a place that we need to focus on more.
Interesting. What were the most significant findings from the study, particularly regarding Aspergillus and bacterial contamination across facilities?
Aspergillus, of the 9 hatcheries that were a part of this study, was discovered at least 6 of those hatcheries across multiple locations. And so even though Aspergillus has been, I guess, on people's radar for a long time, it's well published, well studied, we know it can be a problem for chick health in the hatchery, and even when we've been trying to tackle it, it still persists. So that says a few things. Maybe we're not looking at it the right way, maybe we're not pushing hard enough, or we're the burden and the incoming challenge is just so strong that our current practices aren't fighting it off. So we did find it a lot, especially in areas that are concerning, and it's coming in both on the eggs and in the air. So a lot of our hatcheries, we do a lot of roof plating and sample the air, and people always think, well, that's not really the hatchery, but we also know what the environmental challenge outside of the hatchery is. So what is knocking at our door that we have to fend off? And most of these hatcheries had that, but also a lot of them have it on the egg pack that's coming into the facility. So then that tells us the breeder flocks have it, and it's reoccurring coming in the hatchery all the time. So we can't really take a break from fighting it off, and we want that number to stay down. And even if it comes in the facility, I mean, there are things that we can do, but it's when it gets to the end at hatching time that it's the most problematic. So making sure that it's out of the hatchers.
Wow, that's crazy. I mean, that's sometimes research brings you something you aren't prepared for, right? It sounds like that was kind of maybe a surprising result.
Yeah, it definitely was. I mean, we know that it's a problem and it's been around, but people are always so focused on it that we, I guess, assume that it's not a problem and it's in the background, especially if we're not seeing it in the chicks. We assume that it's not there. But, you know, a lot of these times it's close to being a problem, and then it just takes a few more things to go wrong or the chicks to be stressed in another way for it to explode, if you will. But we've also had a lot of products that have been effective for controlling fungal challenges that are now off the market and with regulation hard to get. So we're having to find other products and other ways to control it.
It's a challenge, right? It's a challenge. So were there specific areas within hatcheries that were more frequently contaminated, and why were these locations especially important to address?
2 places in this particular study that were highlighted were the laboratory, so where we're mixing and preparing the vaccine, which really should be one of the cleanest places in the facility because that's what we're taking and we're injecting it into an embryo. So any contamination is going to be incubated and potentially pathogenic and problematic for the embryo. So that place should be really clean and was definitely not. And the other location that we highlighted was in the setters. And I think that's for a few reasons, but one is the setter is harder to clean than, say, the lab, especially if you're in a multi-stage incubator hatchery. It's not all in, all out, and the opportunity to get in there and do a deep clean is very rare. And so that wasn't necessarily surprising, but shows that our embryos are having a challenge against them during incubation. So the lab was probably the most surprising in a similar way to the Aspergillus, in that we know it should be a focal point, but our current sanitation practices, or are we adhering to what practices we think we have in place, is the other side of that, are not working.
How can routine environmental surveys help hatcheries move beyond general cleaning towards more targeted improvements in sanitation and biosecurity protocols?
Good question. I think the two key things that are routine and targeted. And so a lot of people, they don't do any sampling until it's already too late, like when there's a problem. And so if we're doing routine surveys, it's really to confirm if our sanitation program is working or not. So taking samples after cleaning and see if it works, if it's truly clean, and before there's a problem, and that's the key thing. And then being targeted is the other part. So if we just sample randomly here and there, you're not focusing. But if you target a specific location that you know is more likely to have an impact on chick health, like the lab, like the hatch baskets and the hatchers, that's the place you should focus first, because it's going to make the biggest impact. And then once you tackle that, you can move on to other things, because it can be intimidating to try to look at a whole hatchery program. So if you break it down to by area, what's most important, learn from there, and then get to the other areas. Yeah.
Very good. How can improving chick cleanliness in critical hatchery areas translate into better chick livability, feed conversion, and overall flock health?
Well, that hatchery is the start of the life for the chick. And if we think about a broiler and its average age of processing, it's going to spend 1/3 of its life in the hatchery as an embryo. So we don't think about that whole timeline. And how they start out, your percentage hatch, your chick quality at the hatchery, is a clear indicator of what your predicted 7-day livability and feed conversion ratio are like. So if they start with good sealed navels, no yolk infections, no Aspergillus challenge, they're going to be a lot healthier when they get to the field. And that's all about managing your sanitation at the hatchery.
Wow, that's incredible. Well, thank you, Josh, so much for all the information today. This was fantastic.
Thanks. Always glad to talk about the hatchery.
Awesome. Thank you. This is Sarah Mikesell with the Poultry Site.